Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Bite Podcast. I am your host, Hunter Myers, and I'm very, very excited to be welcoming Nicole Roe to the show today. So, Nicole is the founder and creative force behind our Nickson Interiors, which is a full-service interior design firm that works with clients across the country. With a degree in building construction from Georgia Tech and a background in marketing and business development for construction firms, Nicole brings a unique blend of technical expertise and creative vision to every project. Nicole's passion lies in creating interiors that are an unapologetic extension of her clients' identities and brands, which I'm very excited for us to be talking about today. So, Nicole, please, before we dive into all things interior design, tell us first how you got into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Okay, so Hunter, I feel like my story is very similar to most. I was a really bad employee. I just ADHD brain, creative brain, then throw that into having young children. It's really hard. It's hard to know that you have to be at an office, especially in the construction industry at, say, 7 a.m. Stay there all day is really not what I was meant for. So after taking a few years as a stay-at-home mom, I realized it wasn't the fit for me. I realized I could do interiors on a small scale. And as many of us know, that small scale quickly jumps to a full-size firm with employees and offices and all of that.
So, something that I want to know, Nicole, is in that kind of transition period that you had, were there any like key lessons that you learned or challenges that you faced in going from that like kind of smaller on the side business to a full-blown firm?
I think the weight of it all was really hard. I joke that I have two personalities. I have a world domination or a burn it all down. And once you get to the point where you do have, the team and, the clients and the expenses every month, the burn it all down can't really happen. You have to keep pushing forward because there's bills to be paid. And it's kind of the high of all of the success is really, really cool. But I will say, it's hard. Every day is hard, but it's also so rewarding.
I love that you have these, like you said, these two separate personalities, because I feel like a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs can 1000% relate to exactly what you just said as you're saying it. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I really, really love that. Well, I want to get into really your expertise. And this is, again, something that I was so excited about having this conversation, because you talk about this unique way of kind of blending branding and your space and like giving permission to make your space yours. And I think it's something that a lot of business owners don't really think about as much, but I feel like especially in, the day and age of Zoom, where your space is being seen by a lot of people a lot more often than maybe it would have before. I'd love to know kind of what first off encouraged you to start thinking about like the entrepreneurship, physical space, branding space kind of blending together, but then like what that even looks like for a business owner.
I think a lot of it's a personal journey. Who I was at 24, who I was at 28, who I was at 34, and now 38. A lot has changed, but a lot of it's been confidence and finding your true self. But back to that unapologetic, it's okay to be unapologetically you. And I think it takes a lot of life experience to get there. And in the past 5 years, people, like you said, Zoom backgrounds have been important. But even around the same time, the personal brand, especially for founders, entrepreneurs, is really important. We put such an emphasis on our company's brand. We put an emphasis on what we wear, what we look like, the lipstick that you have on. Everybody focuses on that. But they also focus on, their social media profiles, the car they drive. But so many of these people are going home or working from home from spaces that don't reflect them. And we really want people to be like, okay, my house needs to reflect me. You don't need to have it be your branding colors. If your colors are yellow and orange, I don't want to walk into your house and see yellow and orange. But I would want a client or a team member or a friend to walk in and be like, this feels like Hunter. Like it is her vibe. It is her, dreams. It feels like her life in this space. And once you're able to do that, and it doesn't have to be your whole house, find a couple rooms. You can start, inviting people over. You can use yourself on social media more. There's so many ways to take your home and not only like make your life better, but also influence your brand.
I really love this. And I know, Nicole, I said this to you before we started recording, but I think it's important to share here too, like how nervous I was hopping on this call because I'm in a rental. And actually I'd love to talk about kind of things you can do in rental spaces, but I'm in a rental. I'm moving out very shortly, so I had to paint back over my walls. It's back to the landlord's special gray that they love so much. So what do you suggest that people do, especially in like spaces that aren't necessarily permanently yours, or they can't make, maybe the kinds of modifications and things they want to as easily, at least, to start to kind of trickle in that personality in their space. So like it feels like theirs. I mean, I know a lot of rentals especially don't feel like your space.
I always say start with what you love. So it's, do you like to collect things? I am not necessarily a maximalist, but in a sense, I love art. Art travels with you. Start going to the flea market, go to vintage stores, go to art walks. Every town has, like the spring art show. Get on Etsy, get on Instagram, and start buying real art. Not just what you go to Home Goods or Target and can find, but start collecting pieces that you like. And don't think of, oh, my neighbor will like this again or whatever it is. But if you look at it and you're like, huh, that tells a story. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Yes, some artists charge a price that they deserve. And I'm not like belittling that, but flea markets have some of the best art, and start there. And guess what? You can take the art with you. You can use those gorilla hooks. You can use command strips, whatever you need in your rental, but start there. And my next thing is books. Books tell such a story, whether it's a coffee table book or books you're actually reading. They have color, they have texture. You can stack them, but once again, it's really easy to put, a bunch of books in a box when you move.
It's so nice to hear you say, because funny enough, that is what my main boxes are, is art and books. So it's what's already packed up. So I think it's so cool that these are, because I would have never thought about, especially the books from an interior design perspective, of like these can be part of what makes up the space. Like obviously there's content in them, but just the way they look. I mean, even thinking about when you go to a bookstore, right? Like you're drawn to the spine of a book based on how it looks. Like of course you can incorporate that into your space. I love that. That is such a cool trick.
So I will completely admit, I have some books that I turn the other way because I don't want people seeing the title of some of these books that I'm reading. We all are guilty of the random, raunchy vampire book or whatever it is. But there's a used bookstore a couple doors down from our studio that sells hardcover books for $4 each. Whenever we do installs, we send someone down there with a list of the colors, and I'm like, get every baby blue book they have. And $100 later, we have a ton of books. Will the clients read them? Maybe, maybe not. I hope they do, at least some of them. But now it looks lived in. I think there was a meme recently that talked about like, how do you know someone's wealthy? And it was like bookcases full of books. Because I mean, that's true, but it also makes it lived in.
I love this idea of a lived in space because I think a lot of the spaces that I see, and actually especially business spaces, don't feel lived in. They feel very sterile. So what, especially thinking of like bringing personality into, let's say, a home office, right? And creating a, like you said, like a brand aligned space. Like what does that mean for a business and what does it look like?
I think letting your values show is one thing. What do you love? What do you do on the weekends? But also making it all kind of blend and make sense. So we're doing one attorney's office right now, and she wants to incorporate family photos. Great. Let's make them black and white. Let's put them in some really nice frames. Let's make them tell a story that your client or potential client walks in and is like, that's a really cool background. Were y'all in Costa Rica by chance? And then that's a conversation. So I think anything in your office that sparks conversation is really fun. If you have windows, plants. We love when there's plants in an office. Please take care of them or pay your assistant or somebody to keep them alive. But once again, it's life. It shows that someone's there, but also lighting. Think about a standard office. You have overhead lights. No one looks good in overhead lights. You just don't. So to bring in the ability of a clip lamp on a bookshelf, have a desk lamp on a console behind you, or a task lamp or a floor lamp, anything that brings the light down, that makes you look better, but it also makes people feel more comfortable and relaxed then again, your office looks used and lived in and thought about.
You've brought up how a space can tell a story and making sure that the items within the space are telling a story. And I think that's a really interesting perspective and something that I hadn't thought about before. Can you kind of break down what that storytelling process looks like, or even the things that you look for when you're trying to help clients tell stories in their space?
To think of it as the opposite of like a model home. You know, you walk into a model home that the company's gone in and they've put the beige sofa with, you know, the matching pillows and all of the items. The art is very basic. There's nothing to talk about as you're walking through. I mean, maybe the weather, but in your own space, you should be able to talk someone through your entire home, if that makes sense. It's so cool to be like, oh, yeah, we got that at a flea market in Paris. You know, my son made that. Like, that's still cool. Tell your son what your favorite colors are, what your house looks like. But it's kind of moving through that story where each little thing, whether it's records, a console table that was your grandfather's, like, I'd rather there be one or two things that kind of make people stop and look. I joke with my kids, they know this, like, take an awesome space and you got to F it up. You just got to be like, okay, this place looks too perfect. Let's get a wild piece of art or a statue or just something that makes people pause. And then also be like, maybe this person is a little cooler than I thought they were.
I really like that. It almost makes me think of a home kind of being like your own art installation of sorts, right? Because like when you go to a museum and whatnot, and not one of the museums that feels really sterile, but just like there's a story in each section of a museum. And if you read the placards on the side, like it tells the story of the piece and the artist. And hearing you talk about this, I feel like is giving me a whole new perspective on like the approach to walking people through my own home and like collecting things and placement. Something that I'm curious about is, especially, you know, we talked about the difference between, you know, a model home versus like a lived-in home. And I'd love to hear from you kind of what do you feel like the cost is, whether that be, you know, a financial cost, but also probably like a mental and emotional cost of living in a space that doesn't align with you, doesn't have those stories, doesn't fill your cup, you know, in the way that you're kind of describing your personality in the space can do.
I think it's almost one of those you don't know until you know. If that makes sense, like if you've been living a certain way, especially if your parents' home or wherever you've kind of been living for a long time is very bland or not you, it's what you become used to. And say you do entertain or you do have people over, and everybody may have a great time. You have movies, you play games, not a big deal. But as soon as the place switches and becomes you, and becomes your brand and becomes your items and your story, everything changes because you want to be there. Your friends want to be there. You can't not be happy when you're there. And like you said, the cost, financially, mentally, there's a lot of different things, but I don't think it has to be some wild investment that you have to make one day. Go to the plant store, go somewhere and get a couple things and just start living your life to how you like it, but also think about what you love. Like, do you love bright blue? Great. Let's figure out some cool ways to add it to maybe your very beige house. Maybe it's a planter. Maybe it's a couple coffee table books. One way that's super easy is to get one of those book cradles. They have like acrylic ones online. Nicson Interiors has one. I think they sell it on Amazon, but they open coffee table books. So you're able to pick a page on your coffee table book that you love. So maybe it's a vacation spot you want to go to or, you know, something else. But you leave it open to that and just watch your guests sit down, look at it, read it, and start flipping through because it invites them to explore a little bit more.
I love the exploration that it seems like occurs when you start to inject more of your personality into a space. I feel like a lot of the time, especially for people who are not interior designers or even designers in general, maybe like artsy or consider themselves creative people, I feel like you can view a home for mostly its function, right? Like not really thinking about the flair and the personality and what that can bring. So I love that we're having this conversation. Something that I'm especially curious about as we're thinking about, you know, injecting personality in, what do you do when there are multiple personalities? Let's say it's a business that has two co-founders or even a family, you've got two separate partners who maybe have different styles. What are ways that you blend the personalities together?
I think you have obviously a lot of different options. And even with me, my husband's colorblind, very colorblind. And he doesn't get a vote. Like when it comes to the colors, he doesn't get a vote because he really can only see a few. He's a great human, but like he doesn't see colors. So that really instantly leans it towards me. But as long as the house is functional for him, he's great. He could really care less about some of the items in the home. He might think I have too many plants. But I think when you're trying to combine multiple people, it goes back to everybody's values. Most likely, if you are both, co-founders, you have similar values in your life because you started a company together. Most people wouldn't do that if they didn't have, a common ground. And same with your partner. So you got to find what people are comfortable with. Some people may be comfortable with a lot of stuff, others not so much. What I have found with my husband is as long as everything has a place, he doesn't care how much stuff there is. But if it feels just messy and undone, that's really hard on him. We have also found triggers for people being contrast. And I'd be curious on the branding side, you have high contrast, medium and low. Some people cannot handle a high contrast home. And that is something that's like, okay, so you can't do the black white. You can't do the navy cream. You need something more in the middle, something a little muddier. And then there's people that can't handle low contrast, the white on white or beige on beige at all. So I think finding that common ground with the other person, like what are you comfortable with? Because once again, especially if there's neurodiversity in the brain at all, you don't want someone to walk into their office and be like, I can't be here. I need to work from home, or walk into their home and hate it. So I think finding the common ground on the amount of stuff and color and contrast is a good starting point.
How do you learn that with your clients? Like, what is the process like to actually get a feel for their personality, their values, what they like can and can't tolerate?
I think going into their current space can help some. Most people and a lot of people, their current space doesn't reflect who they want to be. And then it goes back to, Pinterest boards can be helpful, but they can also be extremely overwhelming. So we have found giving them a stack, once they kind of tell us colors or, what direction we're going. Is this coastal? Is it mountain or whatever? Giving them a big stack of wallpaper that we all like. We like every single one in the pile. We don't want them to pick something we don't like, but being like, pull out the ones that you like. Pull out the ones that you could see in your house. And that teaches us the contrast. It teaches us the busyness they like. Do they like large format? Do they like small format? Do they like texture? And just learning from that stack of, say we gave them 3 dozen wallpapers, they pick 8. We could design a whole house from those 8 wallpapers.
Yeah, during this process, when you're transforming the spaces for your clients, I'm very curious, do you ever see kind of a transformation in themselves as well? I know that when I do branding for clients, right? Like there's obviously this visual transformation in the way that we present the brand, but I almost always see a transformation in the person too from when we started to when we launched the new brand. And I'm curious, do you experience something similar?
It would be impossible not to. I mean, think about it. They're walking into a space that myself and my team have literally dove into every inch of their life, every inch of their personality, how they function, their daily routines, who they want to be, what they want the world to see them as. And now they have it. They have the space. They can entertain. They can hop on, Instagram stories. Even just the way their closets can be set up helps them in a daily basis. And how cool is that? I just think it's one of those things that yes, you just spent a lot of money to have this space, but now like your life is forever changed.
Mm, you bring up closets, and I think it's something that gets overlooked a lot, right? And so I'm curious if there are other kind of commonly overlooked spaces that when you guys work on them actually create big impact that, Joe Blow, average person who's not in this space would think, oh my gosh, I would have never thought to do that.
We like to dive into people's routines. So we've kind of deemed it functional luxury, which doesn't mean fancy per se, but it means like, how can your house function for you? What do you do every single day that we could do something in your home to make that chunk of your day easier and your life easier. And that could be a laundry room, that could be an appliance garage in your kitchen, that could be, a soaking tub in your bathroom. There's so many different ways that we can kind of tie that in for people that aren't necessarily expensive, but it really just improves every moment of their day. And, obviously storage is big on that. But I think lighting and colors and, really just figuring out who they are is important.
I think that's so smart. And thinking about this from an office perspective, the question of what do you do on a regular basis? Like, what is something that you can do that will make this space more functional, maybe more peaceful, make it easier for you to get from your point A to point B? I mean, I'm sure we all have things in our business day that we do not like doing, right? But can like the space help with that? So that is so, so, so cool. Are there ways, even just thinking again of kind of the office space for people, that you would recommend kind of a starting point for creating more of that ease in the space?
I think figuring out how your team likes to meet. So about 5 years ago, we worked with a marketing agency. Oh, it was probably like it was a while ago, but they were very collaborative. They really wanted to be able to work together. So we did a whole corner of their office that had stadium seating. It has pillows and blankets, but they like to kind of do that huddle meeting where there's people on sofas, there's people on the stadium seating, and it's like just cozy and fun, but it gives you that teamwork moment. And then in their working spaces, the desks have wheels because they found a lot of the people do kind of, depending on the project, want to work with others and move around and have their stuff. And that was just a neat opportunity for them. But the best part of that office was we did a huge long swing by the front window. And it was more of a decorative, kind of a fun talking point, but they've realized the number of people that would get up in the middle of the day, sit there with their laptop or their phone and get the movement, kind of swinging back and forth a little bit, having conversations with a big window there really kind of gave them excitement, but also made it fun.
Sounds like one of the coolest offices I've ever heard of. And it's so smart, like you said, for a marketing company whose focus is on, teamwork and the way that everyone interacts. Another question that I have, I feel like I'm getting so much information from you, is what are some of like if someone's going to take one step today to improve their space. And I know you've kind of mentioned, find some artwork or collect some items that have a color that you like, but especially for like a founder of a business, what would be like the first step that you would tell them to do to create a space that feels like their personality and is aligned with their brand?
I think figuring out what they want to use the space for. What is their end goal with it? Is it for, being on a Zoom call, kind of like we are right now, or are they wanting to have clients over for dinner? Are they wanting to have team members over for, kind of breakout sessions? Are they wanting to entertain on the weekends? And really like hyper focusing on that one space and really playing around with it to figure out what they do want and how they use it. But also once they have 100% done, then it kind of trickles out to all the other spaces instead of getting one space like 50% done and then you never really finish. But if you have that one room that has the drapes, it has the light fixtures, it has the rug, it has the art, you can at least walk into that one room and be like, this is it. This is the direction we're going.
I really, really like that. Nicole, I know I've asked you a ton of questions. I would love to ask you one that's a little off our path. It's actually one of my favorite questions to ask people. And it is, if you could change one thing in the entrepreneurial space, what would you want to see done differently?
I think the ability to completely turn it all off. Yes, we can, look at our emails over the weekend, or yes, we can put our phone on silent and put it on the charger, but we're still responsible for it all. It's still our company. We can have a number two. We can have an executive assistant. We can have great team members. But at the end of the day, it's still there. It still exists. There's still things happening in the background. And I would say my second one is I would love just to like look like a complete bum and go to the grocery store and it like not matter. But I have found as an interior designer, people expect something of me when they see me in public. I could be at a soccer game or I could be at whatever, but they still expect a certain level of like put together. And that is one thing I'm like, oh, if I could just go no makeup, not washed hair, with sweatpants and it be okay. My luck, I'd run into, a client or somebody and they'd be like, oh, this is who we've hired.
I feel like I resonate with that, especially like being a designer, that pressure to be put together, to show up and look a certain way because like our businesses are judged on the way we make things look. So I feel that so hard. Oh my gosh. Well, Nicole, seriously, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I'd love if you shared with people how they can get in contact with you, how they can view your work, if they'd like to hire you, anything you want to share.
Yes. So we are R, like the letter Nickson, Nickson Interiors. So you can find us on Instagram. We are on YouTube. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places. And then I do have my own podcast called Highly Affected by Her Surroundings. And that you can find on our website as well as Instagram as well. So this was so much fun. Hunter, you're the best. I love your voice and your vibe. And just congratulations to everything you've done.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share all those links. Please go check it out. I have viewed Nicole's work. It is absolutely gorgeous. So I hope you get to view it too. Nicole, thank you again. And everyone else listening, keep killing it.